What's going on, everybody? Hopefully you had a good weekend. In this video, I'm going to talk about Cleanspark. Their Bitcoin mining update just dropped today. We're also going to look at Cleanspark on the chart and look at Bitcoin on the chart. Now, Cleanspark in December mined 668 Bitcoin, and in the full 2024, they mined 7,024. Their year-over-year hash rate growth is 287%, very impressive, and a 33% efficiency improvement. And I'll summarize this quickly by Zach Bradford. We firmly established ourselves as a US leader in operational hash rate, cost efficiency, fleet performance, Bitcoin treasury management, and portfolio-wide uptime. Surpassing our year-end guidance, we reached an impressive 39.1 exahash and enhanced our fleet efficiency to under 17.6 joules per terahash. As a side note, many Bitcoin miners are still in the 20s. We strategically expanded our 3 new states, Mississippi, Tennessee, and Wyoming, while completing multiple site expansions. We crossed a historic milestone by mining our 20,000th Bitcoin, successfully closed the $650 million zero coupon convertible bond offering in December. They're fully equipped to execute strategic objectives. As we gear up to achieve 50 exahash by mid-2025, I think this will come sooner. Our growth strategy is not only ambitious, but fully funded, positioning Cleanspark to lead the industry into its next phase of innovation and scale. Now, their total Bitcoin holdings as of December is nearly 10,000, 9,952. They will be well over 10,000 on the next mining update. I do expect them to continue to hodl. Their month-end operating hash rate, as said, was 39.1 exahash, very close to that 40. Megawatts under contract, 853 megawatts. Very impressive fleet efficiency. I told you guys 17.59 joules per terahash. Bitcoin sold, 12.6 Bitcoin. Very small amount of Bitcoin sold, like we have typically seen. This is the time to hodl, in my opinion. Follow the cycle. There will be a clear time to sell. But 2025 just started, so I think the hodl strategy is still a good one. Throughout 2024, December, the company's average hash rate was 35.52 exahash. So the numbers we got was based off of 35 exahash. They're already at 39. Our January update should be a lot better. Average fleet efficiency was 18. Now they cracked under 18. We'll see more efficient mining in the month we're in, January. They mined 21.5 Bitcoin daily. The single day high reached 22.5 Bitcoin. They sold 12.6 Bitcoin, so basically half a day worth of Bitcoin essentially. And they sold this at an average price of approximately 101,000. We do have some updates from Jackson, Tennessee and Wyoming. The first phase of the company's 60 megawatt Bitcoin mining site in Jackson has been successfully completed, featuring an initial 12 megawatts of the latest generation S21XP immersion miners. Second phase, currently underway, brings an additional 48 megawatts of air-cooled miners online. Once fully operational, they're expected to add approximately 3.7 exahash to their overall hash rate. And Cheyenne, Wyoming, by year-end, S21XP immersion miners delivering 1 exahash were energized as part of the rapidly advancing construction of 75 megawatts of immersion-cooled Bitcoin mining data centers. Let me take a breather. This milestone highlights the company's efficient development capabilities, with the initial phase completed less than 6 months after closing. The full 75 megawatts is on track for completion in the first quarter of 2025, expected to contribute to a total of 5 exahash of their most efficient hash rate. We'll probably see those joules per terahash climb even lower. Cleanspark's up about 5%. I don't think really reacting to their mining update, just Bitcoin miners in general are doing pretty good today. They ended the week strong last week. Friday, they closed near highs, and that was a great sign. Now, something we witnessed for Cleanspark recently was a break of our uptrend, and we did see a clear reaction, pulling back, following under this descending resistance, which we broke out of, and you got a clear reaction. We do have some work ahead of us. Cleanspark still needs to reclaim the 50 MA, needs to reclaim the 200 MA, and we need to get our golden cross again. We did face a death cross a few months ago, and funny enough, that kind of marked the bottom here when we started trending up. Keep in mind that death crosses, golden crosses, these are lagging indicators, but they do give a direction of a longer term trend typically. Sometimes, of course, there's false reads. And like in the case of here on the death cross, that basically marked the bottom. This is a symbol of fear. When people see something like a death cross, that can, of course, bring some selling pressure. Maybe that's what we saw here, a little bit of a front running on the anticipation of a death cross. And of course, at that time, you know, they posted earnings. We were kind of selling off, had a gap to the downside. And this was in August. This was when Bitcoin was near its low, that $49,000 low in August. Cleanspark bottomed out shortly after, in September. I personally do expect that the bottom will hold up. We have not yet filled our gap in the 7s. We got awful close to it. We started nearing it, but we did recover. Here's the thing about gaps. Sometimes they don't fill until next cycle, and we did see this last cycle. But on the off chance we do get a gap fill, be ready with some cash. That would be a fantastic buying opportunity. As I've mentioned to you guys before, Cleanspark, the Bitcoin miners in general, are setting up for a good Q4, and at the least a better Q4 than the quarter before it. While some stocks like Cleanspark expects profitability, and I would go with what their expectation is, being that they were the last Bitcoin miner to report earnings, or at least the last that I'm watching. Many of the other Bitcoin miners reported earlier in the quarter. when Bitcoin was lower in price. So that forward guidance was based on a much lower Bitcoin price. But Cleanspark is one Bitcoin miner that is expecting a profitable quarter as per TradingView, and their earnings is right around a month away. We have some very bright times ahead. The Bitcoin miners are approaching profitability again. We just got through the multi-month pullback from the Bitcoin halving, cutting rewards in half, the Bitcoin miners going to unprofitability, and you have retail investors saying, wow, Bitcoin's $100,000 and Cleanspark's the same price as when Bitcoin was $70,000, and people ignore the biggest thing in the stock market, profitability versus unprofitability. If your stock is unprofitable, you're burning cash. If your stock is profitable, you're gaining cash. There's a reason to be investing in a company that's making profits. If you expect a company to move to profitability, some of those are the best buying opportunities out there. And I do think Cleanspark, the other Bitcoin miners, are going to end 2025 strong with profitable quarters, barring a recession, barring Bitcoin dropping back under 70,000 for a full quarter. I personally think 70,000 is out of the question in Q1. Do we come down and test the 200 MA at some point? Sure. Could the 200 MA be up towards 80 to 90,000 by then? Sure. It's a very positive sign that we reclaim the 50 MA, and we are only a measly 7% move from new all-time highs. Bitcoin can do this in a matter of a week, or it can continue to stagnate until we get the inauguration, until we get FOMC. We also have CPI, PPI coming up, and we also have labor market data coming on Friday. This is going to be very crucial. The market's going to be watching this. This is going to set the tone for the Fed meeting upcoming. If CPI and PPI show inflation cooling down, the market will likely rally, knowing that more rate cuts are on the horizon. If job data comes in very weak, unemployment rises, new jobs aren't what they're expected to be, this could definitely cause some fear, and it'll cause even more fear if inflation ticks up while unemployment rises. That will cause a panic. So I do expect January to be a somewhat volatile month. There are going to be rips and dips along the way. There's going to be speculation that things are going to be good. There's speculation that things will be bad. The market will be volatile. One thing to realize, and I've talked about this recently, is we are approaching alt season. Some would say we're basically in it now. Some would say the best time to buy the alts is before we get into alt season. Before we have 75% of the top 50 altcoins outperforming Bitcoin, you want to get in before the top 75% is outperforming. But that is, of course, the indication that alt season is in full effect. The time to buy the alts, in my opinion, is now. The time to buy the Bitcoin miners is now. The time to buy the Bitcoin plays that have recently pulled back, in my opinion, is now. We have a beautiful 2025 ahead of us. We have rate cuts coming regardless. We are in a rate cutting cycle, and we are facing into global expansion, which Bitcoin ties together so closely. About 85% of the time, Bitcoin tracks global M2 expansion. This is money basically coming into the globe. The more money, the better. The more money goes into other assets. Now, I did show you guys on the fib retracement tool that from this run after this pullback, we basically came down, tested, and held the 0.38. Now, I want to show you something interesting. You know, if you're looking at it from the beginning, the full breadth of this run, the full pattern here, this full uptrend, you know, the 0.38 does land right at this support line on our megaphone pattern. Perhaps we do come test it if CPI, PPI come out iffy. Remember, Bitcoin in 2025 isn't just going to go straight up. There is going to be volatility. There could be a 30%, 40% correction before we go on to hit new all-time highs and have our cycle top. On the short term, we're overbought. On the 4 hour, we're overbought. But that doesn't mean we can't consolidate and continue higher, similar to when we were much more overbought here on November 12. Look at what happened to the price right after November 12. Super overbought. Didn't matter. It retraced a little bit and then continued higher. You'll notice that this was more overbought. However, at this point, we sold off more and it was less overbought. Why is that? Well, at this time, we saw some major bearish divergences, whereas this wasn't nowhere near as severe in terms of bearish divergences. When you see the mid-December, you'll see that the RSI peaked much earlier and started cooling down, whereas the price was still steadily rising. That's where the RSI topped out, and this is where the price topped out as the RSI is cooling down. There's a bearish divergence, and that did mark a reversal right there. That marked our top. This time, you didn't really see that. So keep an eye on those bearish and bullish divergences. You like to combine them with other things, such as head and shoulders, etc. But you can see also here, we basically bottomed out on the RSI in December 20, but the price bottomed out in December 30. We saw the RSI steadily gaining momentum while the price was slowly dropping. This was also an RSI divergence, a bullish one, and we did start recovering. Now keep an eye on the shorter time frames, the hourly, the 4 hour. Look for those bearish divergences. that can sometimes give you an indication that things are going to cool down. But how are you guys feeling about Bitcoin? Do you think we're going to hit new all-time highs? Do you think it's going to take a little bit of a wait, or do you think the top is already in? Also, how are you feeling about the Bitcoin miners? How are you feeling about Cleanspark's mining update? I do think the tides are clearly turning for the Bitcoin miners. We've seen some small amount of strength in them recently. I do speculate that Wall Street is speculating that the Bitcoin miners are on the brink of profitability, and it is clear that we will start seeing the profitability rolling in, and perhaps Cleanspark will be the first to post a profitable quarter after all the miners got knocked back down to unprofitability. But thanks as always for watching, guys. Hopefully you enjoy the rest of your Monday, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.